The game changers.
Welcome to this channel. I am Dr. Steven de Vos, the lifting dermatologist, and this is my bro science hunting partner Danny Bossa. If you want to learn more about the most cutting-edge science-based information in the world of hormone optimization, please like and subscribe.
Click the bell button to get notified.
I also invite you to join my other YouTube channel, The Lifting Dermatologist. The link you can find in the description of this video.
So one of the things we talked about is kind of a big thing going on now in the social media is this Netflix movie, the Game Changers. We just talked briefly offline about that. So, what are your thoughts? I think the majority of majority of people I've seen kind of think it's a little bit of nonsense, but there are some people that are, they said, yes, I've been doing this for a long time and my life is great. What's your position on this?
Over the last several months and recently, these last couple of weeks, I've gotten a lot of emails from people, phone calls saying, hey, what do you think of this movie? And what do you think of the vegetarian approach? My first question to them is, what are you trying to do? And usually it's, I want to lose fat, gain muscle, and improve energy. And then my response is, then a vegetarian or a vegan diet is not the way to go. That's going to send you in the wrong direction. And it pisses a lot of people off. But I don't care because I'm going to tell the truth based on, my experience. That particular movie seems to have a pretty big agenda. There's some questions as to the people that are making it. What investments do they have in vegetarian food companies? What's really their agenda? But if you're wanting to naturally optimize your testosterone levels, then you need saturated fat intake. And that comes from primarily animal protein. And definitely I would prefer organically raised protein sources. I think there's a lot of benefits to that. I think that there could be a small percentage of the overall population that responds very well to a vegetarian approach. And they consume protein from fish and eggs and seafood. That's one camp. I've seen that work well. Also, they tend to need to be very, very sharp with supplementation to make up for a lot of deficits in the diet in terms of vitamins. Also, I think amino acid supplementation is very important for that group and essential fats. But in terms of the straight vegan approach where they're very limited their protein sources, very rarely do I see that work at all.
Okay. And the other thing I found interesting with that video was they weren't really exploring anything from the other camp, from the other side, and say, well, this is their position, let's explore this, and this is the vegan position, and then maybe you can come to your own conclusions. It was just very much focused only on one side, without any mention of the other.
Here's an interesting one, and I heard this years ago. Someone said, well, gladiators ate a vegetarian diet, they ate grain. Well, gladiators were slaves. I don't think a lot of people know that. It's not like they were, athletes of today making millions of dollars and had this, huge public persona and could do whatever they wanted. They were very popular in, I guess, ancient civilizations, like, the Roman Empire, but they were slaves and they were fed with stuff that was cheap. And from a few different researchers over time, what I've heard is one of the reasons they gave them grain is because it made them fat and they had more body fat so they could withstand the gladiator matches with, different strikes in terms of swords, blades, whatever, so they wouldn't bleed out as quickly. So that does make sense. That's probably something they realized. But anybody who's thinking, oh, well, a gladiator ate grain and they were in great health, and that's why they did it. That's complete nonsense. I mean, you look at the movies and there's people in good shape. Probably not how they looked. They probably had a very difficult life. They didn't live very long. So, that's one example of just, kind of twisting some facts to fit your agenda because they didn't eat grain out of choice. They would have liked to have a broader diet. They ate that because it was cheap and they were slaves.
That's kind of the one thing that's always kind of struck me is whenever anybody mentions, well, our ancestors ate this way and humans from 10,000 years ago ate this way. And, guys from 1,000 years ago ate this way. And I'm like, but they didn't live very long. Number one, we don't really know how healthy they were or how strong they were,
right.
And just because they were eating that way back then, maybe it's just based on the fact that that's what they had available to them and they just kind of learned to thrive. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily mean if they had some of the stuff that we had available today that they wouldn't have been in way better health. So I always find it difficult to take the position of that's the way our ancestors ate, so that's the way I should be eating today.
One of the things I think we can logically take from our history is, one, that we were not designed to eat refined food. We know that, genetically, I don't know what the exact statistic is, but our digestive systems have not evolved tremendously from now back, let's say 1,000, 10,000 years ago. And certainly then they did not have supermarkets. They did not have refined foods. They did not have trans fats and all of these things. So I think we can use a logical standpoint as, one, we didn't eat a lot of refined foods. Two, we did not eat 6 times a day, back 1,000 years ago. And that's one that Dr. Serrano points to very often, is eating a high meal frequency is not necessarily a good idea for a lot of people. It can cause some problems. So we can take that from our history, but, they ate what they had available. And certainly they went long periods without eating food at all, based on disasters or war or famine, other things, that are going on. And truly, what were the records? How do we know what they ate? Did they have meal plans they put on a digital file that they left us to open? So there's a lot of questions about that. And a lot of it was regional too. I mean, people ate differently in different parts of the world. I think that definitely makes sense.